So what is the length of the adult stage of a monarch butterfly? And if you want to talk about each stage, that would be great.
That is such a fun question because it varies dramatically.
I would
For the
imagine.
generations that emerge in southern United States in the spring, northern United States and southern Canada in the spring and summer, they will live for 4 or 5 days as an egg, about 2 weeks as a larva, a couple further weeks as a chrysalis, and then as an adult, they will live usually for, say, about 5 weeks. But the final generation that emerges in northern United States and southern Canada in July to August, they are going to, can I remember the word? Sexual diapause. They undergo sexual diapause, which means that they don't mature reproductively right away, whereas most of the generations do within 3 to 8 days. They're ready to mate and lay eggs, but this generation doesn't. Instead, they drink a lot of nectar, they gather together in clusters, and they start flying all the way to Mexico. And some of them in Mexico, some of them in California. Depends if they're on the eastern or western side of the Rocky Mountains. And when they get there, they will live all through the winter. They aren't active. I don't know if it's torpor or something similar. It's like hibernation. They just hang off of trees in massive clusters and wait through the winter. And then when spring comes, they fly a little bit north again, and that is when they mate and lay their eggs, and then they die.
Wow.
So yeah, either about 5 weeks as an adult or many, many months.
That's amazing. So, okay. I love that you said generations, because that has an implication here that it takes multiple generations from the time that they leave their brood site, for lack of a better word, their home base. And
I would say their wintering site, because it's not
wintering site. Okay.
Brood site kind of implies that's where their young are born and then they mature and move off like salmon do, but it's not like that. They're overwintering there, but they're laying their eggs in all sorts of other places.
Okay. So when they leave their home base, their winter site, and they migrate north and east and west across the entire continent, essentially, just mostly north, but in different directions?
Well, there's one group that goes between northwestern Canada and the United States down to Southern California. And there's another group that goes between northeastern Canada and the United States. Well, north United States, southern Canada, but east. And they go down to Mexico.
Okay, so there's a west migration and an east migration going north and south.
Yeah.
And when they leave Mexico after they do their first winter, how many generations does it take before they get back, and how long does it take? Do they come back within a year before the next winter?
Oh, yeah, no, this is all within 1 year because they can't live through frost. So it can take just 2 generations. It might take 3 to get all the way up here to Canada. And then the final generation is the one that goes all the way back.
So around the time, it depends on the time of year then. So for us, we live in central Ontario, so we are one of their northernmost destinations. They're not going much farther than us.
Except in Newfoundland.
Oh, interesting.
They do go farther north there.
Okay. So they come up to us, and by the time they get to us, they will lay eggs, and that is the 3rd generation, potentially?
Yeah, it's probably the 3rd generation that reaches us. It might be the 2nd, and the 4th generation hatches here and flies south.
Wow, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. 4 generations, and the last one has the entire journey home.
That's right.
You got to go through the fall, all the way south.
And they're going somewhere that not only have they not been, their parents were never there. Their grandparents were never there. It might be their great-great-grandparents who left Mexico or Southern California.
Is there a physiological difference and a way to identify male and female monarchs?
There is. When they are in caterpillar stage, you can't see it. Apparently, if you dissect them in their older phases, something we didn't talk about is that the period between shedding their skin, as caterpillars, they do it, I think, 5 times. They're called an instar.
Instar, yeah.
Yeah. So the first couple of instars, there's nothing detectable. If you dissect them in the later instars, you can see it. And then when they're in their chrysalis and you start to see the wing markings through the chrysalis, then you can tell. And when they're adults, there are some physical difference in terms of like abdomen shape and things, but the wing spots are the easiest thing to look at. So males have these two spots on their wings that females don't, and those are something to do with organs that release chemicals for mating. They're common
Oh.
across butterfly species. I did read that they aren't particularly important for monarchs, but they still have them.
What are some troubles that the monarchs are facing right now, whether it's environmental or governmental or people infrastructure? What's happening?
Habitat loss is a huge one. We've talked about before that part of it is that there's a history of removing milkweed from grazing land because it does have those toxic glycosides and that can make livestock sick. There's also just all the other things we use land for as humans. Instead of fields, we have strip malls and neighborhoods and downtowns, you know.
Yeah.
And because they make this massive migration, they need milkweed to be all along that route. Have we mentioned yet that their specialist insects, their larvae cannot eat anything but milkweed? They can eat a number of different species of milkweed. I think 40 of them. But
okay, so that was
it has to be milkweed.
Yeah, that was one of the later questions. Absolutely, is are they plant specific? Is there a plant alternative? Like if I were to be raising monarch caterpillars, which is a different question. We'll get into the ethics later. Can I substitute it for something? Will they accept it? You're
Not
saying
the
no.
larva. The adults can drink nectar from a range of plants, although milkweed, especially common milkweed, is a just incredible nectar source. So they're going to use that a lot for sure. But they could drink other nectar. However, because they need to breed along the way, it has to be milkweed. It has to be available.
So
another thing that is impacting them is weather events. We're having more unstable weather. They are lightweight little butterflies. They can easily be blown around and harmed by serious weather events.
Tropical milkweed is something that we see all the time for sale as a seed by your big seed distributors at your basic box stores. Aren't necessarily a good choice in Canada, and I'm going to let Erin potentially say why. But tropical milkweed does exist in the States. It has a native range somewhere.
I would say that it is actually a worse choice in parts of the United States that don't get frost. So places where it can endure all summer, or all winter rather. And the reason for that is what makes monarchs vulnerable to OE.
OE.
It's, what is it, a parasite?
Yeah, it's like a protozoa parasite. It's like a yeah.
So, okay, you're a butterfly. You're in a place that doesn't get frost, so you can survive the winter there.
Nice.
You see that there is milkweed that is thriving. It is not getting old as the season wanes. There's nothing to tell you to migrate. So you just stay. You're like, I'm going to stay in Florida this winter. Now you're vulnerable to this protozoa because you are hanging out in Florida all winter instead of going on to Mexico.
Really? I didn't realize that it would. I guess that does make sense because if it doesn't have the seasonal development and the seasonal end, you know, the milkweed dying off in the winter, you're right. There's no reason for them to leave. Interesting. We talked about OE, which is a sort of parasite. I forget the technical term for it, where the monarch caterpillars will consume the leaves and consume this problem. And what that problem is when it goes into the chrysalis stage, it hinders and mutates the development of becoming a butterfly. And so the butterfly might emerge with damaged wings or a crooked abdomen or sometimes completely like missing a part or something like that. And basically, if it's an incomplete metamorphosis, it's much more unsuccessful as an adult. And its lifespan as an adult is also severely limited. Speaking of metamorphosis, Erin, can you describe what that is and what's going on there?
Okay, I will do my best. So,
sorry, this is a pop quiz.
Undergo complete metamorphosis, which is where they change from one stage of life to another, and it's a very dramatic physical change. I did read that some of the initial, beginning changes actually start happening while it's still in its larval form as a caterpillar, but most of it happens within the chrysalis. So this fifth instar caterpillar, he's all chubby and long now, makes a silk pad, not on milkweed probably. He'll go off to a location that is sturdier and more sheltered than a milkweed plant, so maybe hanging off a gate, maybe in a brush pile. Keeping a brush pile in your garden, by the way, good idea, provides nice shelter for things. So it'll create this silk pad, hook its rear fake legs into it, because they have 5 pairs of false legs, which there is a technical word for it, but it slips my mind. And it'll also shoot a stick out its butt. There's a term for that too. And that'll hook into the silk pad, and it'll undergo its final molt. And so, being used to cocoons, we tend to think of this stage as, well, they're going to spin the chrysalis around themselves. No, they molt, and there's the chrysalis, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
So now they're this green, hard-shelled hanging thing. And inside there, I didn't delve deep into this within my research for this book, so I will just tell you what pre-research Erin knew, which is that they go runny. They liquefy.
Yeah.
And there are cells in there that know what to do to start producing body parts that they didn't previously have. They maintain having a head, thorax, and abdomen, as all insects do. They still have their 6 pairs of legs, although one of them is very small and you might not see it very easily. But they start developing wings out of some of their thorax segments. And after, I think, up to 15 days, they will emerge from that chrysalis, and their wings will be all crumpled up, and they'll have to hang somewhere, ideally somewhere nice and sunny, to let those wings fill up with fluid. Because the fluid starts out in their abdomen and gradually over time as they hang, runs down into their wings and plumps them up until they can fly.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no notes. That's basically it. It's beautiful, it's mysterious, it's magical.